Welcome to Chucky Radio. This episode of Chucky Radio, I'm going to keep going with the same format. I am going to bring someone on and have them share their stories. Now, this is someone who I was involved in their story, so I get to interject. This episode, I'm going to be speaking with Francesca Kennedy, and we're going to talk about her first ever South by Southwest Film and Music Festival in Austin, Texas. Welcome, Francesca.
Hello, Chucky. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great.
You're back home?
I'm back in Guatemala, and I'm missing Austin so much.
It was a good time. I mean, your first South by Southwest experience.
It was incredible. It was exactly like you said. It was a marathon.
Yes.
Never-ending marathon.
So a little background on how we met. Last year, I was traveling, doing my usual Mexico trips. And every year I've been going to this cool little island off the northern Yucatan Peninsula. Holbox, the way they say it in, what is that, Mayan, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so Holbox, the way the Americans say it, but Holbox. And you and I'd met one of your friends, started talking to them and mentioned that I had been involved in film. And immediately they're like, you need to meet Francesca. Francesca's written a screenplay. It's like, she's in the film business. And so you and I connected and we started talking, and you asked the question that is a dangerous question to ask me, which is, what are you working on? And of course I tell you my documentary. And you're like, oh, what's a documentary about? And that started a very interesting conversation.
Of course, I was so fascinated. Who's not going to be fascinated by the Picasso story? It's got all the right ingredients for a blockbuster hit. Murder, art.
Yep.
I think it's a wonderful story. And I was so intrigued, and I can't wait to see what happens with it.
Well, it is progressing, and actually part of South by was an important little tidbit here. You know, when we were during South by, we ended up meeting some cool people, and I actually had a conference call with one of those people today, which was very interesting. So,
Ooh, you have to tell me about those. Which, out of all the people we met, who was it, and what did they say? I'm really excited.
I'll tell you about it later. But we're going to talk about your experience, your South by experience. So we end up, it was funny because we had met in Holbox, but I was actually leaving. And I had a cousin in Mexico City that I was planning on visiting. And you were heading back to Mexico City. So we ended up meeting up in Mexico City. Had some drinks, had some dinner, met one of your really cool friends that lives there. And then again, we connected because you happened to be traveling with this really cool friend of yours, the fashion designer, in the south of France.
Yes, with my friend Thelma Espina. She's a top designer in Guatemala, and she was delivering some of her really beautiful custom pieces to a few stores in France. And I just tagged along, and then you were so gracious to invite us to a wonderful event with the producers over in Cannes, and we just happened to be there at the same time, so it was perfect.
Yeah, that was cool. It didn't get a lot of time, but you guys were able to come by and check out the event, and that was your first time to ever even see the Cannes Film Festival, right?
Film Festival.
Yeah, so that was really cool.
Yeah, and I got to do the whole red carpet and go to a movie premiere, and that was a dream, always on my bucket list. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. And so then we've kept in contact, and then it kind of came up. It's like, have you ever been to South by Southwest? And you're like, no. And I'm like, well, come up here. I've got a spare room. You got a place to stay. Let's go do South by Southwest. And so you were just all over it. I was like, that's awesome.
Exactly. And it was really last minute, right? I think we talked about only like 3 weeks before, not even, or something like that.
Right.
I feel like it just happened so quickly. We got it all organized
Yeah, I mean, it
and it
all kind
worked
of came
out.
together within about a month. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And then the thing that was cool for me, I mean, I've been to South by many times. It's here in my backyard. It kind of becomes, the same old thing. It's always great. I love it. But to get to experience it with someone who's never been here before, it makes it a kind of a cool experience to see it through someone else's eyes, you know?
exactly.
So I remember like one of the things that was interesting that happened, we had originally planned on you coming in just for the music part, but then you
Hmm.
heard a rumor.
Oh, yes. I was dying about this. So on my bucket list is I want to see Kanye West at his Sunday church service. So there was a rumor. I don't even know who told me, but I read it somewhere and I just started getting on Twitter and trying to figure out when and where this church service would be. It's usually on Sundays. So I was like, Chucky, can I move my flight? Can I come in earlier? Because it might be the Sunday before I arrive. And I was initially going to arrive on Tuesday and I didn't want to miss it. So I even moved
So we
the
moved your
flight.
flight to come
Yeah,
in Saturday night just so you'd be ready to catch Ye doing his Sunday service on Sunday morning.
exactly.
And listen, it was a legit rumor. I mean, there
It
was a
was.
petition or a permit that had been filed to do
Mhm.
a Sunday service and performance down at Republic Square. But of course, you came in, we went by Republic Square, hoping to see them starting to set up for it. And
That was the first thing we did. You picked me up from the airport. I was like, let's go check out Republic Square and see if they're setting up. And there was nothing there.
but the good thing about you coming in early is that first weekend is the film and tech portion of South by Southwest. And so you got to go with me to a film happy hour and get to do a little networking on the film side, meet people since you're involved in this film project. And so that was pretty cool.
That was amazing. And I feel like both of us got some really great contacts, and I'm super excited to see what happens with both of our projects. And I think there's at least 3 or 4 people that seem super interested that could help with both of our projects. So let's see. I think it was
Absolutely.
so great that I came in earlier. It was worth it.
Yeah. And then, of course, very involved on the film side. A guy I'd known for years, but I hadn't seen him in a long time. He's a talent agent, lives in LA now, was a talent agent here in Austin. Lupe.
Yes, I love Lupe. He was my favorite.
He was like our
So
bud.
kind.
He
Yeah.
totally like, okay, Charles, Francesca, I'm going to get you guys in over here and we're going to go over here.
He was hooked up more than anyone at the festival. He knew every event. He knew where to be, right time, all the great events with great food, which ones to avoid, great music, great people. He knew what to do and what to skip. So he was the perfect host and tour guide for my first South by.
I
So it
know
was great to have met him.
it was so cool. I mean, Lupe is one of these guys you can just tell he just knows how to meet the right people. And, I mean, one of the things that we ended up doing is we went to that blockchain labs party, right?
Hmm.
And we didn't have passes to get in there. It was like a pretty exclusive party, and they had this, pretty well known singer, Verite.
Hmm. Maritime. Hmm.
Yeah. But one of the things that was interesting is I guess he started talking to the organizer of the event, and they wanted to get more film people to come. So, of course, he's like, oh, I know these filmmakers. And so that was like his end to get us in there, which I thought was
Exactly.
very cool. And then we went to the Latin house that day, which was really cool.
That was beautiful. Really cool.
So, give me a little bit like what was your take on Austin and South by? I mean, how does it differ from going to like other festivals that you've been to before?
This one seems super casual in terms of the conversations you could have were just easier. Just to meet people. It felt really warm and inviting. Everybody that we met, Eric, people who were not even at the festival, Ian, who did introduce us to people in the film industry, it just all flowed really naturally. And that would be my biggest takeaway is just it felt so easy just to meet people, network. It was very fluid. And I feel like other film festivals that I've gone, obviously the Cannes Film Festival is very formal.
Right.
And especially in that environment, you don't necessarily approach people as easily as I think you would in Texas. Texas is just a warm place. I've gone to Sundance, and also I feel like a lot of people who come there, it's you can have conversations really easily, but it doesn't feel as incredibly warm as Texas. Everyone was just willing to chat and talk to you, and you could be next to a rock star producer, a rising actor, having these conversations at the same time. It just was really sweet to see that. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. Was my favorite part of it.
And you mentioned like some of the people we met, they weren't even there as part of like the film festival. They didn't have like badges or anything, but there were just people from Austin, right? And I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
neat things is the whole community kind of comes together. And that's the cool thing about South by is it is really integrated with the Austin community because it's so decentralized. Like there's so many, places, coffee shops, restaurants, bars all become venues for the festival, become venues for like parties and things like that. And there was a lot of events where you could just RSVP if you were, just a local person that wanted to try out or check out some of these things.
Yeah.
So one of the things, every festival, you always end up running into some hiccups, I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
not all peaches and cream, right? And I recall you had a dinner that you had some friend of a friend or brother that you were needing to meet that you'd promised you were going to get together with. And then I had gone off with some other friends to go watch Kimbra, who's, like an older, I mean, older in the sense like she was really big 10 years ago or something. Really beautiful music. It was in this, church. They actually were using
Mm-hmm.
a church as a venue. And you showed up a little late. Tell me about that.
Yes, I can say it was my very first fight in church. So can you imagine that? So I'm a good Catholic girl. I know you are always to be well behaved in church. And this was my first almost knockdown fight in front of church. So what happened was you had gone in with your friends. There was a huge line. You guys were wonderful. You waited in line and you thought you would be able to just come out and get me. But the line, there were actually two lines up each side of the staircase. And I figured one, and this is a whole other podcast that we should do another day, is the etiquette of skipping line. And when can you do it? When can you not do it? So obviously I'm by myself and obviously I'm living in Guatemala right now. So I'm your guest. I'm staying at your house. You've got the keys. I don't even know how to get back to your place. So without you, I can't survive in Austin, right? So
Right.
I have to find you. It's like the end game. And my phone situation that we also dealt with, I had to get a SIM card and I went through the SIM card super quickly with my data. So I'm also worried that it's going to run out and I'm not going to be able to communicate with you. So
Right.
I know we were going back and forth. You're like, all right, just come up the stairs. I'll come out and get you. So
Right.
that's what
And
I
we
did.
were saving a spot for you. It was like,
Yeah.
it was three of us already in there. We had a
Hmm.
spot saved for you. And
Hmm.
honestly, I think there was another big act after Kimbra, and most of those people were waiting in line to get in to see if they could get in for that act. So
Hmm.
I didn't see any issue with like coming out there and saying, "Hey, we're holding a
Hmm.
spot for her. She was
Hmm.
just running a little late." And what happens?
So I get up to the top, and the security guard was really cool with me going in. He's just like, well, somebody's got to come out so that you can go in, just a courtesy for the capacity, firemen can come in. They've just got to maintain the capacity. So I
Right.
understand that. So he's like, all right, one person's got to come out so you can go in. And you were so gracious that you said, take my spot so you can go in for a little bit and check it out and then we'll figure it out. And so in the chaos of all of this, there are some girls there who are not having it. They're like, get back in line. You can't skip line. They start screaming at me. They're speaking in another language and I don't even know what they're saying, but I can tell it was really close to getting into like a physical altercation with them. They were like not having it. I was scared. And I was like, I think I said something just thinking it would help calm them down. Was like, oh, I was already in. I just came out. That didn't work. They had been standing in line and saw that I was not there. So nothing that I was going to say was going to calm them down. So you did come out and you saved the day.
Well,
And
and you know, it's
mhm.
back to what you were saying. It's like this almost self-righteousness of, that they're imposing, they're not even, they don't work for South by, these two young women who just felt like they were going to be the authority
The
of
police,
the police
right?
of who gets in this venue, and like you can't skip line and all this. And it was just like, and I remember I even tried to reason with them. I'm like,
Mhm.
look, I mean, and the performance was already halfway through. It wasn't like,
Mhm.
we were just going to hang out for a little bit. But yeah, finally, I just felt like, if it's an issue of her coming in a capacity thing, then great. She takes my spot. I'm going to walk out. I've already seen half the performance and I was good. And they still had a problem with it.
Mhm.
They were just like,
They
and
did.
then the security guy came up and I could tell at first he was really almost confrontational with me. Like he thought I was trying to cause a fight. And I
Mhm.
just looked at the guy and I said, look, she just wants to go and see a little bit of them. I'm willing to step out, And he kind of looked at me and then he realized, okay, this guy's being very reasonable about it. And so he okayed it. And that's when he's like, and I told you, just go ahead, go in. And I went out and these women were still sitting there, oh, blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
And then you were
Oh,
you
so
were so sweet that you went in, you saw it for a few minutes, and then I'm getting a text message from you. Where are you at? I'm coming out. I'm like, why are you coming out? I was like, I got you in there. Enjoy the show. You're like, no, no. It's like there was
that's
already,
not fair. Yeah, that wouldn't be fair. I just wanted to check it out for a second
yeah.
and and I wasn't gonna leave you out there with the crazy ladies.
I was already across the street at a bar about to get a drink when you
Okay.
so but yeah, those are some of the
It happens.
the
It
things
happens.
that
But
you
that was
have to
my
deal with.
almost first fight at church. So
You're almost first fight at church. And so outside of South by, one of the things you had said you'd been to Austin before, but it's been a long time ago. You just came in for an opening of the hotel,
mhm.
and I don't think you really got a chance to see a lot of Austin, right?
No, no, we really didn't. We were in and out of Austin. We were there only for 2 nights. I didn't get to do any of the nature part. There's a lot of things that I missed, and it was great that you were able to show me a beautiful side of Austin that I didn't get to enjoy the last time. We did so much. You have to remind me. Like we went to the lakes.
We went up to the top of Mount Bonnell where you could get the beautiful view of Lake Austin.
Hmm.
We ended up going up to that cool Walnut Creek where you went hiking, I went biking. Since you're like
Hmm.
the hardcore jogger, I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to ride my bike to keep up with this one. And then we got the invitation to go out on the lake, that's Travis Lake, on that boat on Sunday morning.
That was so cool, so beautiful.
Right. So the boat, we went out that morning, Sunday morning, which of course was funny because our friend who had invited us had said, okay, are you sure you guys are going to make it? Because we only got a couple slots left. This boat's going to be packed. And then we get out there Sunday morning and everybody bailed on him.
Everyone bailed.
Everybody ended up sleeping
They had
in.
too much fun, yeah, the
Yep.
night
Too
before.
many hangovers. But we were up.
We were troopers.
And we got out there. And so we got to spend the morning on Lake Travis and then finished up about noon,
Hmm.
grabbed a bite to eat, and then we went to Barton Springs. And that
Burning
to
Springs,
me,
yes.
yes, that's like the gem of Austin. I mean, it's right
Hmm.
by downtown. It's a completely spring-fed pool. And yeah, it's got that, great little hill that everybody just hangs out on the grass. And, our friend joined us with his little ukulele to play some music. And it's just, that's like the Austin vibe for me. That's just
Hmm.
like, I'm glad you got to experience that.
Me too. That was very special.
Yeah.
It felt like my mini Central Park when I used to live in New York City.
Yeah, very many compared to Central Park.
Mini, mini.
So tell me a little bit about what you thought of the bands that you saw in Austin.
Wow, where to start? Every night, I think we saw at least three to five. So at the British Embassy that one night, it was awesome. Forgot what the band's called, but he sang my favorite song, which is "This Must Be the Place," which everyone remembers Talking Heads and was in the soundtrack for Wall Street.
Right.
He was amazing at covering it. That was a highlight.
That was Jamie Webster.
Jamie
He's
Webster.
from England and he like is known because he plays or performs music during or part of like the soccer games out there. I want to say Manchester.
Oh, amazing. That part I didn't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to look for him now. And I watch the soccer games.
And then you got to hang out with another UK singer that was I mean, just a great performance at the place called the Swan Dive. Remember Buzzard, Buzzard, Buzzard?
Buzzard, Buzzard, Buzzard. I got to meet the lead singer. And they were so sweet. I even went and bought them some shots of whiskey because they were complaining. Do you remember they were talking about how crappy the whiskey was?
Right. Someone had given them some crappy whiskey, and you're like, I'll get you some good whiskey.
I think they only had one kind of whiskey there, so I think I got them just more crappy whiskey too. But they were so happy and grateful, and they took pictures and talked to us for a little bit, and they were awesome. I want to see where they go.
One of the things that I love about South by is kind of discovering new music. And for me, it was new. For you and the rest of the world, everybody knows this guy. But what an amazing performance by Sebastian Yatra.
Amazing, amazing. He was incredible, and it was great to share that with you. I just saw him; he was at the Oscars. Was that last night, 2 nights ago?
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he was there performing, and he was on the red carpet. So he's doing so well, and it was wonderful to share that with you because he's Colombian. You're Colombian.
Yay. Very cool. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I listen to a little Latin music every now and then, and the reggaeton I know is kind of a great genre that a lot of people around the world love, and I never really knew Sebastian Yatra, and it's like wow, just being there and feeling the energy of the crowd, and it's a great venue. That's a brand new venue, Waterloo Park that they did. Just had a great energy to it.
That was my favorite venue. It was so beautiful. It was all outdoors, gorgeous, really beautiful. My favorite one. And we saw Kygo there also,
Right. I was about to say.
which
Your
which was
other must see that you
that
saw
was
on the
my
schedule.
I think he was my top, and then Sebastian. He was incredible. I honestly didn't realize how talented he was. He played the piano. He was just incredible. Sometimes when you see DJs, you don't know how behind the scenes, who's orchestrating it, if it's authentic, and you could tell he's a real artist. So that was incredible to see.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that was the thing. I mean, we talked about this again, the marathon, not a sprint. And so
Hmm.
we kind of made our list as these are the ones we must see. And we just had like one or two of those for each night. Then everything else just flowed. I mean, everything else was just like, we end up where we end up, and people will end up saying, "Hey, come meet us over here or over there." And so that's kind of the way South by ends up going, and we got to see all the ones that we kind of had on our list that were the must sees. Of course, the one that I thought would be really interesting, since you appreciate Latin music, was after Kimbra, after the incident, we ended up over at Hotel Vega, which of course is a really small venue.
Hmm.
It took us a little bit to get in there, but then there was this whole Latin showcase. And unfortunately, you missed Superfonico, which is a Colombian band, because they had come on early. But we got to see a few more, and that was a lot of fun, right?
That was so much fun. I think every Latin house that we went to, Latin event, were highlights for me. The vibe was amazing.
Yay. So the last thing we want to talk about, one of the things that we kind of set out as a mission was
to find the best burger in Austin. And every night we went to a different place and tried a different one. You're going to have to tell the audience all the places. I can't even remember. I came back definitely a lot heavier, but a lot happier.
I don't know how this theme developed, but I remember at one point when you had gotten in late, I'm like, well, one of the late night places you can get food, and it's one of my favorite, is P. Terry's, which is a local burger joint that uses like natural Angus beef. So we did the P. Terry's late night, and then you saw the In-N-Out burger, and you're like, oh my God, there's an In-N-Out here? So then we did In-N-Out burger one night. And then it started becoming like this theme. Okay, what's the next place? And every time you talk to somebody, someone would always have a recommendation. Oh, you need to try this place. You need to try that place. So the other Texas staple is Whataburger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the beauty of these places is, of course, they're open late night, or in the case of Whataburger, it's open 24 hours. So after a night of dancing and drinking and watching bands, a little burger kind of hits the spot, right?
It was necessary, definitely necessary every night. And it always hit the spot. It was amazing. There was not one that I can say disappointed. They were all fabulous.
I will say we had a long list of recommendations, and I think we made it about 2/3 the way. You still had like Sandy's and Dan's. Yep, Dan's. Mm-hmm. Those are a couple you still...
I've got to come back then and finish this list off.
Exactly. And the other funny thing is, after we did the whole, like, okay, we got to try these burgers, of course, one of the things in Austin is tacos, right? Because we're Tex-Mex here. And so I think we ended up trying like about 3 or 4 different taco places. And those are always, fun, different. You got Torchy's and you got Taqueritos and all that. But finally, the most important thing that I would not allow you to leave Texas.
Oh, I know.
You cannot leave Texas without eating good barbecue.
It was the best barbecue I have ever had in my life. I can't even describe. The fact that I'd never even had barbecue like this until that day is mind-blowing.
Right?
How was I living without this knowledge and this taste? It's incredible. Like, how can you live a life without this?
I tell you, and you're going to have to come back again because you only got to try one barbecue place, which is one of my tops. Terry Black's down on Barton Springs is definitely top-notch barbecue, but there's a lot of other barbecue places in town that you didn't even get a chance to take a whiff of. I mean, Salt Licks and La Barbecue and Franklin's and Styles, Switch. I mean, there's so many great barbecue places in Austin. So, yes, I do think another trip to Austin is going to be warranted sometime.
I think that sums it up. I've just got to come back. There's still a lot left to be done and eat.
Exactly. Well, Francesca, it was a blast having you here. It was a blast.
Thank you, Chucky. You are such an incredible host. Thank you for everything.
No.
As a friend, on a professional level, you introduced me to a lot of people. I really appreciate it. It was so much fun. We danced our butts off.
Yep.
We had great food, met incredible people, and we will repeat it.
Absolutely. Until the next time, Francesca.
Take care. Big hug.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Chucky Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. Our theme music is by our friend, Guy Porter. Until next time, this is Chucky. Peace out.